conversation on Facebook earlier today where a copywriter was asking about a beat the control opportunity that they had. So basically, they had this client, this great potential client that they wanted to get a gig with, and the client said, "Hey, I'd love to have you start working with me as a copywriter. Would you like to do a beat the control challenge?" And the copywriter was asking, like, here it is. Should I take it? Do you have any thoughts? Do you have any experience? And I actually have a lot of knowledge of how beat the control works and all of that. And it's been on my list for a while to make a video about beat the control. And I thought that responding to this particular question would be especially helpful because it actually gives me way more depth than how I was going to respond to it initially. So initially, I just wanted to talk about, hey, what is a beat the control challenge? And I'm going to do that in a second. But this opens up, like, when is it good for copywriter? When is it not good for copywriters? And so on. So first off, what is beat the control? So the term actually comes from statistics, and in a scientific research situation, what you do if you're going to run a scientific experiment is you have a control condition, which is like considered normal, right? So if you're testing a new medicine, the control is actually the placebo, like people who don't get the medicine, and then you test the medicine against it, and you see what the different outcomes are. And in a beat the control marketing experiment, what you're doing is you have the current ad, the current campaign, the current funnel, the current whatever it is, right? You have that, and then you have this new ad or campaign or funnel or whatever, and you test traffic. You split up traffic between the two sources. So some person arrives at your website and they're randomly selected to be shown this or this, and over big enough volume, basically what happens is you get two groups who, roughly even-sized groups who've been shown this ad. And you can see, okay, this many people responded to this, and this many people responded to this, or this one generated X revenue, and this one generated Y revenue. And you're able to test these ads against each other to figure out which one generates the best response. And the one that generates the best response is considered the new control. And, if you win, you have the new control. And in like high level direct marketing, the best direct marketers out there, they're constantly doing this. They're constantly beating their own control, whether you're talking like individual, like small Facebook ads or space ads or emails that are sending traffic to a bigger campaign that's working. Or what I'm often hired to do is I go up head to head against advertising that's been written by some of the best copywriters in the world. I write something, I try to beat their control, and we figure out who's the winner, and that person's ad gets run. That person's ad gets the money put behind it until somebody comes along and knocks it off. And some great copywriters, like Gary Bencivenga, for one, is known for actually trying to beat his own control. So with clients who really trusted him, he would write an ad, and then he would write another ad immediately after to try and beat it. And then sometimes he would actually turn in two ads to the client at once and say, hey, if you can test both of these, I would love to know which one performs best. And in fact, today, right before recording this video, I'm working on version 2 of a VSL script, and the original VSL has not even been tested. I'm just giving them two options that they can test against each other. So I'm much more likely to get something that performs really well. So why is this particular client offering this to this copywriter? Well, especially with newer copywriters, but really with all copywriters, a client wants to take on a minimum amount of risk for any particular transaction or deal or whatever. And so the client what they're trying to do is they're trying to de-risk the transaction. So if they have to pay you in advance, and let's say you don't have a portfolio, you don't have any client background, you don't have any kind of a track record, you don't have any of that. And if they pay you in advance, well, that money is at risk. They're risking that entire fee. And so when they're paying you that, plus they're paying to send traffic to the promotion and so on, you are asking them to take on a fairly significant risk. Now, a good established business, there are infinite risks to running a business, and so a good established business actually takes calculated risks all day long, and hiring copywriters is yet another one of them. But some of them are, they'll try to minimize the risk, and so they'll propose something like this, like, hey, happy to pay you if what you write for us actually beats the control. Now, the challenge with this is that they are essentially putting all the risk on you. They're asking you to take on the entirety of the risk of your copy, including, and this is the part that is challenging to me, including the risk that they actually just never run the copy, they never do anything with it, they don't actually test it, they bungle it in some way, they edit your copy to smithereens, and then they say, well, your copy failed, when you don't even know if your copy would have won. And so they're putting all of the risk of the transaction onto you. And there's a famous Gary Halbert story, and the punchline of the story is that he goes on this riff about the 10 reasons copywriters don't get paid, and all 10 reasons our client screws it up. And so if the client is putting all the risk of the transaction on you and they screw it up, well, it might be something that you regret in the end. That said, I'm not actually saying that you should just never do this. And in fact, it can be a very smart thing to do. I'll tell you one of my most critical stories of doing this, the most pivotal stories in my copywriting career, is based on a copywriting beat the control challenge. So rather than saying, hey, yes, you should do this, or no, you should not do this, I have actually just a bunch of questions to ask you if you would consider doing a beat the control challenge. These are the kinds of questions that I recommend you ask. And what you'll find is, my belief is that if a client is recommending this, especially if a client is recommending this, I consider it to be questionable, but not completely unreasonable. And if both of you go into it knowing 100% what you're getting and what the parameters of this are, then it might actually be a really great opportunity for you. So the challenge is to make sure that it's completely laid out and well understood beforehand, and that everybody agrees on it. So the first thing that I'm going to ask is what's your upside? For taking on this excess risk, you should probably have excess upside potential. So are the royalties bigger on this than if they were to pay a fee or fee plus royalties? What is your upside potential in this? Are they trying to just give you a little bit of money if you beat the control? How much is that worth compared to the time it's going to take you, and so on. Second, can you beat it? That's a pretty critical question here. Do you have confidence that you're going to be able to beat this control ad that exists out there already, that's already succeeding in converting customers? And so you want to know, what is it? They should be forthcoming in providing all the details that they can about what this current ad is, and all the details, all the copy, all of that. You should be able to see every moving piece and have that intelligence before you even make a decision. Now, once you see it, the question is, do you see weakness? Do you see opportunities to beat the control? Do you have confidence that you actually have a shot at this? Does it seem like it's airtight? It's presented impeccably. It's full of great proof and credibility and believability elements. It has it has great structure. It has a great flow. It has a powerful story that draws the reader in. Does it have a clear mechanism or unique selling proposition for the product based on the marketer's unique understanding of the product, of the prospect's persistent problem that they face? Are you confident that there's at least one big weakness that you can beat to beat the control? And importantly here, this is kind of a separate thing, right? But do you have to write a brand new letter do you have to write a brand new sales message? Do you have to write a brand new VSL script or whatever? Or do you just have to do something to beat it? So, for example, there's an old Dan Kennedy story where he got hired to do a beat the control challenge, just like this, where he wasn't going to get money if he didn't beat the control, but he would get, I don't remember if it was like $5,000 or $10,000 or something if he could beat the control, and it was for a direct mail piece, right? And all that he did was he slapped on a sticker. And the sticker said, please reply by, and then it included a date that was like 3 weeks after the piece was expected to land in the prospect's mailbox. And so they would get this, and on the front cover, there's please reply by X date, and that date's coming up. And so if they had any interest, they would be less motivated to just set it aside long enough for it to be completely forgotten about. And just that one like sticker stuck on the cover of this control did something like a 50% lift in response rate. And for a high volume direct mailer, that's a huge thing, right? And ultimately the client ended up being a little pissed off because he thought, well, Dan got all this money for almost no work. And so is the parameter of the beat the control contest that you have, carte blanche for any idea that's going to beat the control, or is it that you have to do something brand new? And if it's carte blanche, this could be a really quick and easy opportunity to make good money if you have any ideas there. If it requires a brand new huge piece of copy, well, that's going to impact your ROI for your time invested. So a lot of things to ask there. The other thing I would ask is will this add to your work history? Like from the sounds of this particular person, it sounded like they're fairly new, and this is kind of a banner client, an ideal client, and it would be something where it would be highly valuable to even just add this client's name to their list of past clients and say, oh yeah, I did something for them. And, to have some data around the beat the control. Oh, I beat the control for them. Or, for my first project for them, I did a beat the control. I didn't beat the control, but I indexed at like 95%. So basically I did as well as or almost as well as their pro copywriter. And is that going to add to your portfolio? Is having this in your portfolio going to be a great portfolio piece? And like, how does this all compare to the amount of experience that you have now? So if you're brand new, if you're just trying to get your foot in the door in copywriting, to get any client work, to get the experience of doing any project with a client, this might be a great opportunity, because usually very early on, one of the biggest challenges is just getting any client experience. And so as a freelance copywriter, you might take something like this, even if it ends up just being great experience and never getting paid. But if you already have a bunch of experience, of course, the equation, starts to look a little bit different. So I guess this is the point where I introduce my story of getting my very first copywriting client. And it was very similar, not quite the same, because he wasn't looking for me to do the beat the control. Like, he wasn't asking me to do that. Actually, I approached him and I said, hey, actually the language I used was, I challenge you to a duel. And he had this sales letter out there for this program that he offered, and I thought it kind of sucked. And he admitted that it kind of sucked. But I basically said, hey, I would love to write a piece of copy to beat the control. And I gave him all sorts of outs throughout. I said, I will write this copy for you, and if you decide it's not good enough, you don't have to pay me. You don't even have to test it. If I write this piece of copy for you and you think it's good enough to test, but it doesn't beat the control, you still don't have to pay me. If I write this piece of copy and you think it's good enough to test, and you actually run the test and it does beat the control, then here's how much money I want. And I ended up winning. I got the client. I started my freelance career. That client led to a bunch of other clients. And really, like, that was my start as a freelance copywriter. And then I never did it again. I never took on a beat the control without guaranteed pay ever again. And, would I take on a beat the control project today? On these terms, definitely not, because I've developed a history and a reputation where my background, my history is actually de-risking the transaction. And so if you hire me today, I actually get paid like tens of thousands of dollars to beat the control, like tens of thousands of dollars before there's any results and before there's even a piece of copy written. And the reason that that happens is because I have the background, I have the experience, I have the knowledge that at the very least, what I'm going to write has just an immense probability of being profitable and making their money back and being, being a good enough piece of copy to generate substantial ROI for the client. And the reality is I've beaten a ton of controls in my life. And the likelihood is even if you're hiring me for a beat the control challenge, you're probably going to get the control beaten, or at least it's going to happen often enough that it's going to be a good investment every time you do it. There's a famous Doug Deanna a testimonial that said, you have a good copywriter if they win 1 out of 4 beat the control challenges. You have a great copywriter if they win 2 out of 4. And when you have a copywriter that wins 7 out of 8, you have Gary Bencivenga. And it's Doug's testimonial for Gary Bencivenga. And like that, I mean, clients recognize that beating the control, like having an ad that works really well, and trying to create an ad that works better is a very difficult thing. And so clients who have a lot of experience with that do, like, once you have the experience, they will value, like, even if you don't win the beat the control challenges every time, they value copywriters that have a high likelihood of doing that. And this is just the client who's aware of that potential upside of beating the control. But in this case, it does sound like they're not ready to pay this other particular copywriter because they feel like the risk of even like, okay, so you pay me $20,000, $25,000, $30,000, whatever. You pay me that much to beat your control. And I'm actually a smaller risk than I was when I charged $2,000. Because when I charged $2,000, I had much less experience and knowledge about how to actually pull it off. And so the clients that really value this, they may actually respond to a new copywriter who wants to work with them and say, yeah, you can write something, you can try and beat my control, but you're not going to get paid unless you win. Versus that same client may actually go to like an A-lister or top copywriter and say, yeah, I'll pay you $20,000 when I don't know if you're going to beat the control. And so it's like a whole, it is, again, it's all about that risk. And they want the result before they have the obligation. And it's like a selling principle. Like if you can actually give someone the result before actually taking their money, and I got to give credit to Dean Jackson for this one. If you can give people the result before actually taking their money, they're going to want to buy from you because what you've done, like you've delivered the result, and then they have to pay you. It's so much easier for them to pay in that situation. So what's my recommendation? If you're new to copywriting, if you're trying to get clients, if you're trying to get your foot in the door, should you take on a project like this? Maybe. If it feels like a good opportunity for you, if you can think about everything that I've just covered here, and it's like a fuck yes, right? If you think about everything that I've covered here and you're saying, fuck yes, this is the right opportunity. Yeah, do it. If not, I understand. And it may not be the end of the conversation if it's not a no as it is right now. If it's a no as it is right now, one of the things that you could do is you can actually provide a counteroffer. You can counteroffer, you can say, listen, I understand that hiring me as a copywriter is a risk. And, frankly, the idea of me doing something without any compensation, even when you might just decide not to run my copy, is a risk for me too. Can we meet in the middle and find some opportunity to share the risk and figure out what that would be? And you could propose something specific for that as well. So yeah, my recommendation is maybe take on something like this, maybe not, but it's certainly understandable all sides of the equation. And when you think about it as this whole idea of the amount of risk in the transaction, doing everything you can to share the risk would be immensely valuable, for everybody involved to be able to move forward, or to decide that you're not going to move forward because you can't find a fit. Now, if you have more interest in learning about structuring copywriting deals, especially like getting royalties and pay for performance, which a Beat the Control is definitely like a pay for performance type deal. I actually have training in my BTMS Insiders training library called Copywriting Royalties and Pay for Performance, where I go into these types of deals, where I go into how to structure copywriting deals, like all of the terms and all the deal structures and all of that you want to be aware of if you want to negotiate things like this. And also I did an interview a little over an hour and 20 minutes where I went into all the different details that go into standard copywriter contracts in the direct response industry. And that's a bonus to the royalties and pay for performance training. And really all of it is part of the BTMS Insiders training library for copywriters and marketers. I'll include a link in the description to that training. And I would recommend you check it out if this is something that you're doing or something that you're interested in. My name is Roy Furr. This has been a video issue of Breakthrough Marketing Secrets. I'd love to know if you'd leave a comment below. Let me know on a scale of 1 to 10 how valuable you found this discussion and why. Like, what's your big takeaway? What's your action item? What's your new perspective on this kind of project or deal? Also, click that like button before you go so you get more content like this delivered to you, and so the magical algorithms of the internet will share it with more people like you who will find it valuable. You can certainly share it with folks directly. And subscribe here before you go. You can also go to breakthroughmarketingsecrets.com, get my daily emails Monday through Friday, including these videos and additional content for email subscribers. There's a whole bunch of bonuses you get just for signing up too. Again, my name is Roy Furr for Breakthrough Marketing Secrets. I always aim for that 10 out of 10 value. Let me know if that's what I did, and I look forward to seeing you again in your next video. I'll see you soon. Bye.